My life has always been scheduled down to the minute. 35 years at customs taught me to value order and recognize lies. At 65, I've been retired for 3 years, but the habits remain. Every morning at 6:30, I make coffee. Strong, no sugar, just like my life now. The house in Clerton seems too big for one person. When Elizabeth was alive, there wasn't this oppressive silence. She died 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, discovered too late. The doctors threw up their hands, and for the first time I felt helpless. Today, as usual, I'm going through my mail at the kitchen table. Bills, advertisements, a letter from the insurance company. I open the last one and freeze. The insurance company has finally approved the accident payment. 8 months ago, a shelf fell on me in a supermarket, causing a back injury and compensation of $650,000. The amount, of course, does not compensate for the constant pain in my lower back, but at least it's something. A phone call snaps me out of my reverie. The screen displays Noah. My son rarely calls, usually on holidays or when he needs something. "Hi, Dad." His voice sounds tense. "How's your back?" "Same as usual." "It hurts when the weather changes," I reply dryly. "Listen, Beatrice and I wanted to come by on Sunday, have lunch together." I grip the phone tighter. "Beatrice, my daughter-in-law, whom Noah met 3 years ago in some bar. They got married 6 months after they met, quickly and without much fanfare. Elizabeth was already ill at the time, but she mustered her last strength to organize a small reception for them." "Why?" I ask bluntly. There is a pause on the other end of the line. "What do you mean, why? You're my father. We're family. Family. How convenient to remember that when it suits you." "Okay, come at 2, I agree without enthusiasm. After the call, I sit looking at the letter from the insurance company. $650,000. I wonder if Beatrice knows about this yet. She probably does. She has a nose for money. Beatrice Quinn, now Hampton, 32 years old, 14 years younger than my son. She works as an accountant for some chain company, elegant, with perfect manicures and a smile that never reaches her eyes. I disliked her from the first glance. "She's a gold digger," I told Noah after their third date. "You don't even know her," my son protested. "I've been looking people in the eye for 35 years and determining whether they're lying or not. Believe me, I know people like her." Noah slammed the door then, and a week later announced his engagement. I probably just spurred him on with my disapproval. Elizabeth tried to reconcile us, but to no avail. When my wife died, my relationship with my son was completely ruined. I go out to the backyard where Elizabeth's roses still grow. She loved yellow ones. "Sonny," she used to say, "I kept this flower bed as a memento. We bought our 2-story house with a porch and garage 30 years ago when I got a promotion. The neighborhood is quiet, with neighbors who are mostly retirees like me. Geraldine Potts waves at me over the fence. She's 70, but she still dyes her hair red and flirts with me, bringing me blueberry pies. "Alfred!" "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" I nod in response. Geraldine is the only person I talk to regularly. After Elizabeth died, she tried to pull me out of my depression, inviting me to bridge and senior dances. I didn't give in. "How's Noah doing?" she asks. "He's coming on Sunday." With his wife, I say the last word with barely perceptible contempt. "Oh, wonderful!" Geraldine doesn't notice my tone. "Say hello to them for me." I return to the house and sit down in the armchair where Elizabeth used to read. It's old and worn, with a dent from her body. Sometimes I imagine that she is still here, that I can talk to her, ask her advice. "You're too hard on the boy," she would say. Elizabeth always defended Noah, even when he was wrong. Maybe that's why he grew up like that, confident that everything would be forgiven. Noah is our only child. When Elizabeth was young, she had 2 miscarriages. Then he was born, and then the doctors said we wouldn't have any more children. We invested everything in our son. The best schools, sports clubs, college. He studied computer science and got a good job at an IT company. Before he met Beatrice, he called at least once a week and came over for dinner. And then she appeared. I remember the evening when he brought her home to meet us. Beatrice was wearing a simple black dress with a string of pearls around her neck. The real thing, I noted to myself. She showered our home with compliments and admired the stamp collection I had been gathering all my life. Noah looked at her with loving eyes, but I could see right through her perfectly calculated performance. When they announced their wedding, Elizabeth was thrilled. She was already ill, but she found the strength to help with the arrangements. I stayed out of it. I chose the most expensive gift on the list, a silver service, and silently watched my son make a mistake. "Why are you so sure she doesn't love him?" Elizabeth asked on the eve of the wedding. "Because she looks at him the way smugglers look at suitcases with false bottoms, as a means to an end." "Oh, Alfred," my wife sighed. "Not everyone is trying to hide something." But I knew. Over the years, I'd learned to recognize the signs. Too many correct answers, avoiding eye contact when asked certain questions, and excessive interest in our financial situation. After the wedding, they bought a house in the suburbs of Clarton. Noah continued to work at his company, and Beatrice continued to work in accounting. From the outside, they were the perfect couple. But I knew she was pushing him to spend more than they could afford. A new car, expensive furniture, a vacation in the Maldives. When Elizabeth was bedridden, Noah came every day. Beatrice came much less often, always finding an excuse. After the funeral, she organized a memorial service, set the table perfectly, and comforted Noah and me, the perfect grieving sister-in-law. A month later, they began to visit less and less often. First once a week, then once a month, then only on holidays. The letter from the insurance company brings me back to the present. $650,000, an amount I never intended to spend on myself. I always lived modestly, saving for a rainy day. I have a pension and some small savings. That money will be enough for a decent old age. I was going to leave everything to Noah. But now, knowing Beatrice's greed, I'm not sure he'll ever see that money. She'll find a way to spend it or convince him to invest it in some dubious scheme. In the evening, Noah calls. "Dad, I'm sorry, but we won't be able to come on Sunday. Beatrice has a migraine, and the doctor has prescribed bed rest." I grunt. A migraine. Of course. "That's okay. Get well," I say expressionlessly. "We'll come next week, I promise." "As you say," Noah sighs. "Are you still mad at me for not being there after Mom's funeral?" "No," I lie. "I understand you have your own life." "Dad, he stammers. "Beatrice and I aren't going through the best of times right now. Financial problems. That's what it is. Money, always money." "What happened?" I ask, already knowing the answer. "Beatrice took out a loan to develop her blog about healthy eating, but she has few subscribers and virtually no income. We're 2 mortgage payments behind. I remain silent. So that's why they suddenly remembered me. They found out about the insurance and decided to visit the old man. I can lend you a little," I finally say. "But this is the last time, Noah." "I'm not an ATM. Thanks, Dad," he says, relief in his voice. "I'll pay you back, I promise." After the conversation, I sit motionless for a long time. Thoughts about Beatrice, her greed, how she manipulates my son, spin around in my head, about what will happen when I'm gone, and she gets access to everything I've accumulated in my life. And then the idea comes to me, simple and cruel like a punch in the gut. I'll check on Beatrice. Once and for all, I'll find out who she really is. In my office, I take out an old notebook. I flip to the letter K. Kyle Rivers, my former colleague from immigration. We worked together for 20 years, catching smugglers and counterfeiters. Now he's in a management position at Clarton Airport. It's time to call an old friend. I have a plan. I hardly slept that night, thinking through the details. If I'm right about Beatrice, she'll take the bait. And if not, well, I'll apologize to my son. But I know I'm right. 35 years of experience can't be wrong. In the morning, I called the bank and made an appointment. Then I contacted Kyle. He was surprised at first, but he listened. By the end of the conversation, he was laughing. "You old fox, Alfred. You haven't changed over the years. Will you help me?" I asked directly. "For you, of course. Besides, it sounds fun. And if you're right about this lady, she deserves a lesson." The next day, I called Noah again. "I got the insurance money for that incident at the store. Come over on Sunday, and I'll give you some of it. It'll help with the mortgage." "Really?" His voice was filled with disbelief and joy. "Thanks, Dad. We'll definitely come," I smiled as I hung up the phone. The fish had taken the bait. Now all that was left was to wait until Sunday and see how Beatrice would behave. Saturday turned out to be cloudy. The low clouds gathering over Clerton perfectly matched my mood. I sat in my office looking at the papers spread out in front of me. Bank statements, insurance documents, several photos of Beatrice that I had secretly taken at our last family dinner. In one photo, she was looking at my collection of antique watches with an appraising gaze, as if estimating their value. $600,000 from the insurance payout was sitting in a special account I had opened yesterday. I decided to leave another $50,000 in my main account. I would need it later. I remembered the expression on the bank manager's face when I explained what I was going to do with such a large sum. He tried to talk me out of it, suggesting investment plans and life insurance. I just shook my head. It's a family matter. A phone call interrupted my thoughts. Alfred? It's Kyle. I've got everything ready, just like you asked. My former colleague's voice sounded the same as it did 30 years ago when we were raiding smugglers together. Kyle had always been a reliable partner, sharp, attentive to detail, and with a great sense of humor. Thanks, Kyle. I knew I could count on you. If I understand correctly, he continued, you want your sister-in-law to get into serious trouble if she tries to take this money out of the country? Exactly, I confirmed. She's the type who always looks for the easy way out. I'm sure that after her fight with Noah, she'll want to run away to some island, and she'll take the money with her. Do you really think she's capable of stealing from her own husband? Kyle's voice sounded doubtful. She doesn't love him, Kyle. She never did. It was a calculated move from the start. I closed my eyes, remembering that evening 3 years ago when Noah called and said he was in love. It happened shortly after Elizabeth was diagnosed with cancer. Noah came to support us, but I could see that his thoughts were far away. Her name is Beatrice, he said over dinner. We met at the Blue Oyster, where she was celebrating her friend's birthday. What does she do? Elizabeth asked, trying to show interest despite her fatigue after chemotherapy. She's an accountant at Green Food Corporation. Very smart and determined. I remember how I frowned then. The Blue Oyster is one of the most expensive restaurants in Clerton, not the kind of place where ordinary accountants celebrate their birthdays. A week later, Noah brought her over to meet us. Beatrice was dressed modestly, but I immediately noticed the Cartier watch on her wrist. Too expensive for an ordinary accountant. As Elizabeth showed her around the house, I saw Beatrice appraisingly examining every item. At dinner, she asked about my career, my pension, and how we had acquired the house. She was polite and smiled, but I could sense genuine interest behind her questions. She was probing the financial situation of her new boyfriend's family. Kyle, are you still there? I returned to the conversation. Yes, just thinking. This is a serious accusation, Alfred. Are you sure you want to take this step? I'm sure, I replied firmly. I won't let her take everything Elizabeth and I have saved up all our lives. This money was meant for Noah, for his future, not for some greedy gold digger. Okay, Kyle sighed. The money is officially flagged in the system. If she tries to cross the border with more than $10,000, she'll be detained. And if the amount is close to $600,000, an additional flag will be raised. Suspicion of money laundering and links to the recent robbery in Pittsburgh. Great, I smiled. I'll take care of the rest. After talking to Kyle, I took out an old photo album. I flipped through to Noah and Beatrice's wedding photos. It was a small ceremony with only 20 guests. Elizabeth insisted that we pay for the reception, even though I was against it. She looked exhausted in those photos. The chemotherapy had taken its toll on her, but she was smiling, happy for her son. I remember catching Beatrice's gaze as Noah recited his vows. She wasn't looking at him, but somewhere in the distance, as if she were already planning her next move. After the ceremony, I took her aside. Noah's a good guy, I said quietly. He deserves true love. Don't worry, Mr. Hampton, she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'll make him happy. I wanted to say something else, but Elizabeth called me. She wasn't feeling well, and we had to leave early. After the wedding, Noah and Beatrice bought a house in Midwood Heights, a new upscale neighborhood in Clerton. It was a 3-story house with a pool and a garden. It was too expensive for their combined income. I tried to talk to my son about it, but he just waved it off. We'll be fine, Dad. Beatrice is good at budgeting. Elizabeth was getting worse and worse. She spent her last months in a hospice, where I visited her every day. Noah visited his mother 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes with Beatrice. more often alone. I noticed how uncomfortable he was when his wife did come. She sat with a stony face glancing at her watch. Once, when Elizabeth was asleep, exhausted by pain and medication, Beatrice went out into the hallway to make a phone call. I followed her to buy coffee from the vending machine and overheard a snippet of their conversation. "Of course I understand that this is a long-term investment," she said, "but after the old folks are gone, we can—" Noticing me, she stopped abruptly and smiled. "I have to go, Janet. We'll talk later." After the old folks are gone. That phrase stuck in my mind. She was already planning how she would spend the inheritance. When Elizabeth passed away, Noah was devastated. Beatrice took care of the funeral arrangements. "To make it easier for you," she told Noah and me. I saw the bills. She chose the most expensive services, the most luxurious coffin. "Elizabeth deserves the best," she replied to my objections. And after the wake, she took me aside and asked how soon the will would be announced. A month later, she and Noah began to appear less and less often. At first, my son explained that it was because of work. He had been promoted and was spending more time at the office. Then Beatrice started a blog about healthy eating and organic cosmetics, which also took up a lot of time. I could see that she was pushing Noah to earn more, spend more, and live up to the image of a successful couple. When I tried to talk to my son, he defended her. "Beatrice is just ambitious, Dad. She wants a better future for us." Every conversation like this ended in an argument. And then this incident happened at the supermarket. 8 months ago, I went to Foodland to buy groceries. As I was walking past the canned food shelf, I heard a crash, and the next thing I remember is pain and darkness. The shelf was not secured properly and collapsed. I was lucky that most of it fell past me, but my back was still seriously injured. Hospital, rehabilitation, court with the supermarket owners. Noah came twice, on the first day in the hospital and when I was discharged. Beatrice didn't show up once, but right after the court's decision on compensation, she called to see how I was feeling. I got up from the table and walked over to the window. The rain intensified, drumming on the garage roof. Noah and Beatrice were coming tomorrow. I had already prepared everything for my plan. On the table lay an envelope with a bank card and a statement for a new account. $600,000. Next to it was a small note with the PIN code. All of this would be waiting for Noah on the coffee table when he came in. I would say that it was part of the insurance payout that I had decided to give him now, rather than leaving it in my will. "You are my only son, Noah. I want you to be happy while I am still alive." I was sure that after that, one of two things would happen. Either Beatrice would convince Noah to immediately spend the money on something grand, a new house, a luxury car, or more likely, she would wait for the right moment and run away with the money. Of course, there was a chance I was wrong, that Beatrice really loved my son and cared about him, that the money would go toward paying off their debts and creating a financial safety net. But every time I started to have doubts, I saw her face in the hospice hallway and heard her words, "After the old folks are gone." The phone rang again. This time it was Noah. "Dad, we're leaving tomorrow at 10. We'll be at your place around 11. Do you want me to bring anything?" "No, thanks. I've got everything ready." Beatrice asked if she could help with cleaning or cooking. I smiled. Such thoughtfulness, I must say. "No need. I ordered lunch from Italian Courtyard." "Okay, see you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow, son." After hanging up, I went back to my preparations. I had to make sure everything went according to plan. I took an old tape recorder out of the safe, small and inconspicuous. I checked to see if it was working. Recording our conversation was an important part of the plan. If everything went as I expected, this recording could come in handy when Noah accused me of what had happened. Kyle called in the evening. "Everything's ready, Alfred. If she tries to cross the border with that money, my guys will stop her. The serial numbers are in the database, linked to the theft case. A full check is guaranteed." "Thanks, Kyle. I owe you one. Come on, how many times have you saved me?" "By the way, are you sure she'll try to fly out? Maybe she'll just withdraw the money and disappear within the country?" I shook my head, although Kyle couldn't see it. "No, Beatrice is the type who likes comfort. She won't hide in motels or change her identity. She'll want to start a new life somewhere in the Bahamas or the Caribbean, where she can enjoy the sun and spend my money. Whatever you say, you know her better. But if you're wrong and she just disappears with the money within the country, There's nothing we can do. She won't disappear, I said confidently. She has relatives in the Bahamas. A cousin, I think. She mentioned it at one of the family dinners when she was bragging that she could get citizenship there. After talking to Kyle, I sat in Elizabeth's chair for a long time, thinking about what I was going to do. I imagined what my wife would say if she found out about my plan. She would surely condemn it, call me vindictive and cruel. Perhaps she would be right. But Elizabeth always saw the best in people. In 35 years of work, I had learned to see the worst: lies, deceit, manipulation. And I was sure that Beatrice would ruin Noah's life if I didn't intervene. I got up early in the morning. I made coffee and checked that the lunch from the restaurant would be delivered on time. I laid out an envelope with a card and a note on the coffee table. I turned on the tape recorder and hid it under the tablecloth. Everything was ready. At 10:55, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. Beatrice's new Lexus, a recent purchase that Noah had mentioned with pride. I watched them get out of the car through the window. My son, a little nervous, adjusting his shirt collar. Beatrice, confident, with a perfect smile, in an expensive suit. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and went to open the door, ready to begin my performance. Noah, Beatrice, it's good to see you, I said, hugging my son and nodding to my daughter-in-law. Hi, Dad, Noah hugged me back. How's your back? Better, thanks. Come in, everything's ready. Beatrice walked into the living room, her gaze immediately falling on the envelope on the table. Mr. Hampton, you look wonderful, she said with a smile. We were so worried about you after that accident. Of course you were, I thought, especially about how much compensation you would get. Have a seat, I said, pointing to the sofa. I made some coffee. Noah sat down, glancing nervously at the envelope. Beatrice sat down next to him, putting her hand on his knee. A gesture of support, but I could see her fingers digging into his leg. She was holding back her impatience. Noah, Beatrice, I began. I received an insurance payout for that incident at the supermarket. A rather substantial amount. I paused, watching their reaction. Noah looked embarrassed. Beatrice kept a neutral expression, but I noticed her eyes flash. I've thought about it and decided, I continued, that there's no point in waiting for my death for you, Noah, to get your inheritance. $600,000. In this envelope is a card with access to the account and a PIN code. Noah stared at me, his mouth open. Dad, this is too much. We can't. You can, I interrupted. You're my only son. Everything I have will go to you anyway. But I want you to use this money now, while I'm still alive and can see how happy it makes you. Beatrice leaned forward. Mr. Hampton, this is incredibly generous of you. We don't know how to thank you. Her voice sounded sincere, but her eyes were already calculating what she could buy with the money. Just be happy, I replied with a smile, and maybe visit your old man more often. Noah came over and hugged me. Thanks, Dad. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I patted him on the back. Just use this money wisely. Beatrice took the envelope and looked inside, checking the contents. I could see her fingers trembling slightly with excitement. We'll pay off the mortgages, Noah said, and maybe invest the rest in stocks or bonds. Of course, dear. Beatrice put the envelope in her purse. We'll discuss everything at home and make a plan. I noticed this gesture. She didn't give the envelope to Noah, but took it for herself right away. The first step had been taken. The rest of the visit was spent in casual conversation. We had lunch, talked about the weather, Noah's work, Beatrice's blog. I played the role of a happy father, delighted to be able to help his son. Beatrice was lively and attentive, offering several times to help me around the house or go grocery shopping. When they left, I hugged Noah and whispered, Take care of yourself, son. He smiled. I will, Dad. Thanks for everything. Beatrice kissed me on the cheek, the first time she had ever done so since we met. You are an amazing man, Mr. Hampton. Noah is so much like you, just as kind and caring. I smiled back, thinking, you don't know how unkind I can be, dear. After seeing them off, I returned to the house and turned off the tape recorder. Now all I had to do was wait. I was sure I wouldn't have to wait long. After Noah and Beatrice left, silence reigned in the house. I sat in my chair, replaying the details of our meeting in my head. Everything went exactly as I had expected. Beatrice couldn't hide the greedy gleam in her eyes when she heard about the 600,000. She even took the envelope for herself without consulting Noah. In the evening, I called Kyle to make sure that the airport's alert system was working properly. "Don't worry, old man," he assured me. "As soon as she tries to go through security with a large amount of cash or leave the country after cashing it, the alarm will go off. My guys will be on standby." Thanks, Kyle. Keep me posted. I didn't sleep well that night. Not because of remorse. No, I was absolutely sure I was doing the right thing. More because of nervous excitement. I felt like I did in the old days before an important operation to intercept contraband. Adrenaline mixed with anticipation. Monday morning was sunny. I was having breakfast on the porch when the phone rang. It was Noah, his voice sounding excited. "Dad, you won't believe it. Beatrice and I were at the bank. That's 600,000. Can you imagine how many problems it will solve? We'll pay off the mortgage and still have money left over for repairs." I smiled. Poor, naive son. "I'm glad I could help, Noah. You deserve stability. Beatrice is so grateful to you. She even suggested having a family dinner this weekend. She says she wants to celebrate the start of a new life without debt." "That sounds wonderful," I lied. "Tell her I'd be happy to come." After the conversation, I turned on my laptop and opened a special program that Kyle had installed for me. Through it, I could track the activity on the account where I had deposited the money. So far, everything was quiet. I considered the scenarios. Either Beatrice would decide to act slowly and cautiously, gradually withdrawing the money, or she would make a sudden move, withdraw the entire amount, and disappear. Tuesday passed without any news. On Wednesday, I noticed the first movement on the account. 5,000 withdrawn from an ATM. The maximum amount that could be withdrawn at one time. It had begun. On Thursday, Noah called, his voice sounding strange. "Dad, Beatrice and I have a little disagreement about money. She wants to invest some of it in her friend's startup. I think it's risky." "Trust your intuition, son," I advised. "After all, it's your money." There was a pause. "Actually, Beatrice says that since you gave the money to both of us, we should make decisions together." "I gave the money to you, Noah." "You're my son. How you use it is up to you." "I understand, Dad. It's just, you know Beatrice. She's very persistent when she wants something." "Oh yes," I thought. "I know that very well." On Friday morning, the program showed a large cash withdrawal, $50,000. That amount could only be obtained at a bank branch by pre-ordering. I knew Beatrice was taking action. Perhaps she was checking to see if the bank would block a large transaction. Towards evening, I got a call from Kyle. "Alfred, I have some information. Your sister-in-law just booked a ticket to the Bahamas. The flight is tomorrow at 8 a.m. I felt my heart beat faster. "Is she flying alone?" "Yes, the ticket is only for her. Business class, by the way. Your sister-in-law isn't skimping." "Thanks, Kyle." "Keep me posted." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Everything was going according to plan. Beatrice was as predictable as I thought she would be. Tomorrow she would try to fly away with my money, leaving Noah behind. And then I would finally prove to my son who his wife really was. On Saturday morning, I woke up at 5. I couldn't sleep anymore, knowing that today everything would be decided. I made some strong coffee and sat down at the computer. At 6:30, the program showed the last transaction on the account, the withdrawal of the entire remaining amount. Beatrice had acted quickly. At 7 o'clock, the phone rang again. This time it was Noah, his voice breaking. "Dad, she's gone." Beatrice left, and she took all the money. I feigned shock. "What? How did that happen?" I woke up and she was gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. "Goodbye, you jerk. I don't need you or your stingy dad anymore." And not another word. I checked the account. It was empty. She took every last cent. My God, Noah. I'm so sorry. I don't understand, Dad. How could she? We loved each other. We had plans for the future. I closed my eyes. No matter how sure I was that I was right, hearing the pain in my son's voice was unbearable. "Are you home?" "I'll be right there." "Yes, I'm home. I already called the police, but they said that since she's my wife and has access to the account, It's not theft. It's just divorce. Hang in there, son. I'll be there soon. I quickly got dressed and went out to the car. On the way to Noah's house, I was overwhelmed with conflicting feelings. On the one hand, I felt satisfaction. I was right about Beatrice. On the other hand, I felt pain for my son, who was now experiencing betrayal. Noah and Beatrice's house looked exactly the same as usual. Large, modern, with a well-kept lawn. There were no outward signs of the tragedy that had unfolded inside. I rang the doorbell, and a few seconds later Noah opened the door. He looked terrible. Red eyes, rumpled clothes, stubble. "Dad!" He hugged me and I felt his shoulders shaking. "She took everything. All the money, the jewelry. Even some of my things." I patted him on the back. "Let's go inside, son. Tell me everything in order." We went into the kitchen. It was a mess. Drawers open, papers scattered everywhere. On the table was a note written in Beatrice's neat handwriting. "Goodbye, you good-for-nothing. I don't need you or your stingy father anymore." Noah sat down at the table, his head in his hands. "I don't understand, Dad. Everything was fine yesterday. We had dinner together and talked about how we were going to spend the money. She was so loving, so normal. And today I woke up alone." I sat down across from him, looking at the note. Typical Beatrice. Even in her betrayal, she remained elegant. The handwriting was perfect. The paper expensive. She planned this, Noah? Maybe from the very beginning. From the beginning of what? Our marriage. He looked up at me with reddened eyes. 3 years, Dad. We were together for 3 years. Was it all a pretense? I sighed. I wanted to say, "I warned you," but I held back. Right now, my son needed support, not reproach. "Some people are very good at hiding their true nature, Noah." He shook his head. "I should have guessed." Over the last few months, she kept asking about money, about inheritance, about how to manage large sums. I thought she was just worried about our future. At that moment, my phone vibrated. A message from Kayla. "She's on her way to the airport. She took a taxi and is carrying 2 large suitcases." I felt my heart beat faster. Everything was going according to plan. "Noah, listen to me." I put my hand on my son's shoulder. "There's something you need to know." He looked at me puzzled. "What are you talking about, Dad?" I was about to start explaining when the doorbell rang. Noah flinched. "Is it her? Is she back?" "I doubt it," I replied, but I felt tense too. Noah went to answer the door. A minute later, he returned with a courier holding a large box. "Delivery for Noah Hampton," said the courier. "Please sign here." Noah mechanically signed his name and took the box. The courier left, and we were left staring at the unexpected package. "What is it?" I asked. "No idea." Noah put the box on the table and began to open it. Inside was a luxurious gift set, a bottle of expensive whiskey, chocolate, coffee, and a small envelope. Noah opened the envelope and took out a card. His face contorted in pain. "It's from her," he said quietly. "Dear Noah, I'm sorry for leaving so suddenly. I need time to think about our future. Enjoy the gifts. Someday you'll understand that I did this for both of us. Beatrice." He threw the card on the floor and slammed his fist on the table. "For both of us? She stole $600,000, called me a bum, and thinks she did it for both of us?" I picked up the card, the same elegant handwriting as in the note on the table, but a completely different tone. Beatrice was covering her tracks, creating an alibi for herself, a version of events where she wouldn't look like a thief. "She's afraid," I said. "She realizes she's committed a crime and is trying to soften the blow." "A crime?" Noah looked at me in confusion. "Dad, she's my wife. Legally, that money belongs to both of us." "Not in this case." I shook my head. "I gave the money to you personally, and I have a recording of our conversation. Besides, there's this note." I pointed to the paper lying on the table. "Goodbye, you bastard. Doesn't sound like we need time to think." Noah slumped into a chair, wrapping his arms around his head. God, I was such an idiot. I sat down next to him and put my arm around his shoulders. "You're not an idiot, son. You just loved her and trusted her. There's no shame in that. And you were always right." Noah looked up at me, his eyes full of tears. You said from the beginning that she wasn't who she claimed to be, and I didn't listen. I even got angry at you. I sighed. I wish I had been wrong. We sat there for a while, each lost in our own thoughts. Then Noah sat up straight. What now? She ran off with the money. We'll never get it back. I looked at my phone. A new message from Kyle. She's at the airport, checking in for a flight to Nassau. Maybe all is not lost, I said slowly. Noah, there's something I need to tell you. My son looked at me intently. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. Now I had to explain everything, but do it right. Not come across as manipulative. Not emphasize that I had set Beatrice up. Focus on the fact that I was trying to protect my son. I suspected Beatrice might do this, so I took precautions. What precautions? Noah frowned. I asked an old friend of mine at immigration to keep an eye on her. If she tries to take money out of the country, they'll stop her. Noah's face changed. Something flashed across it. Hope, anger, and then fatigue again. Do you think she'll try to fly out? I nodded. She's already at the airport, checking in for a flight to Nassau. How do you know? He paused, then shook his head. Never mind. So what now? Will she be arrested? If she tries to smuggle a large amount of cash through customs, yes. If she transfers the money electronically, we'll find a way. I won't let her steal your inheritance, Noah. My son looked at me for a long time, as if seeing me for the first time. You planned all this, didn't you? I knew she would do this, and I prepared for it. I didn't deny it. I hoped I was wrong, but yes, I prepared for the worst-case scenario. Why didn't you tell me? You wouldn't have believed me, I shrugged. You loved her, trusted her. My words would only have pushed you further away. Noah was silent for a long time, digesting what he had heard. Then he asked quietly, what now? Now we wait. I took out my phone. My friend will let us know when she tries to go through security. What if she doesn't try? What if she just flies away, leaving the money here? I shook my head. She didn't steal $600,000 to leave it behind. No, she'll try to take it with her, I'm sure. My phone vibrated. A message from Kyle. She's checked in. Heading to security. Carrying cash, judging by the weight of her luggage. What's there? Noah asked, noticing the change in my face. She's approaching security. Everything will be decided soon. We sat in tense silence as if awaiting a verdict. For Noah, it was a kind of verdict, definitive proof that the woman he loved had used him. I thought about Beatrice's imminent arrest, about how she would scream, demand a lawyer, threaten to sue, about how she would try to contact us, beg for help, and about how sweet my revenge would be when I refused her. Revenge for all the times she looked at me with poorly concealed contempt, for how she manipulated my son, distancing him from me, for how she asked about my finances, barely hiding her greed, for the note, goodbye, you bum. I looked at my watch, 8:30. Her flight was at 9:15. Soon she would approach security, and my people would be waiting. Dad, Noah's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. Whatever happens, thank you. I looked at him in surprise. For what? For trying to protect me. Even when I don't deserve it, I squeezed his hand. You're my son, Noah. I'll always protect you. We fell silent again. The weight was becoming unbearable. Every minute dragged on forever. Finally, the phone vibrated again. A message from Kyle. She's at security. Our people are ready. We're waiting for her to get the money. I took a deep breath. The final act was about to begin. She's at security, I told Noah. Everything will be decided now. My son nodded, his face tense but determined. Whatever happens, Dad, I want you to know that I'm grateful to you for trying to protect me. Even if your methods are not exactly conventional, I squeezed his shoulder. Everything will be fine, son. She won't get away with this. I stared at my phone, waiting for the next message. The scene at the airport was so clear in my mind, it was as if I were there. Beatrice at the security checkpoint, confident of her impunity. Security guards ready to surround her at Kyle's signal. The shock and panic on her face when she realized she was caught. All this time, I had been waiting for this moment. The moment when I could prove that I had been right all along. when I could take revenge on the woman who had caused my son so much pain. Sweet revenge was so close, I could almost taste it. Sunday morning was cloudy. I sat by the window watching the raindrops run down the glass, waiting for news from Kayla. Noah stayed at his house. He said he wanted to be alone, to think about what had happened. I didn't insist, understanding that he needed space. My phone vibrated at exactly 8:30 a.m. A message from Kyle. She's at the airport. She's checked in for her flight. She's heading to the security checkpoint. I poured myself some coffee and went back to the window. The operation was entering its final stage. Soon Beatrice would try to get the money through security, and then the trap would spring. At 9:12, my phone rang. Alfred, Kayla's voice sounded excited. We got her! She tried to get through with $312,000 in her carry-on and hidden pockets. She must have transferred the rest to accounts. She's in the interrogation room now, totally freaking out. I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. The plan had worked perfectly. Great job, Kyle. What's next? The money has been confiscated as evidence. She faces serious charges, illegally taking a large amount of cash across the border, which has been marked as stolen. Plus, a check of her documents revealed visa violations. She's a foreigner, as I understand it. Yes, from Canada. She got her green card after marrying Noah. That's right. The green card is valid, but there are violations of the terms of her stay. In short, she's in serious trouble. I smiled. Thanks, Kyle. Keep me posted. Immediately after the conversation, I called Noah, but he didn't answer. Maybe he was still asleep or just didn't want to talk to anyone. I decided to give him some time and not insist. I paced around the house, unable to settle down. Revenge had been achieved, but instead of the expected triumph, I felt a strange emptiness. Looking at Elizabeth's photo on the mantelpiece, I thought that she would not have approved of my methods. You're too cruel, Alfred, she would have said, but can you be too cruel to someone who has hurt your child? The phone rang again. It was Kyle. Alfred, I have news. We found out that your sister-in-law has tried to pull a similar stunt before. 2 years ago in Canada, she was engaged to a certain Edward Pratt, an elderly businessman. She disappeared the day before the wedding, taking valuables and money with her. I see, I said, not surprised. Did Noah know about this? I doubt it. She used a different name, Beatrice Miller. Besides, the case was hushed up. Pratt didn't want any publicity. We only found out because I requested a full background check on her. Thanks, Kyle. What will happen to her now? Given the circumstances, she faces deportation and a ban on entering the United States. If she's lucky, she'll avoid criminal prosecution. But that depends on whether you file a formal complaint about the theft. I'll think about it, I replied. Keep me posted. After the conversation, I sat down in Elizabeth's chair and thought. Beatrice turned out to be worse than I had imagined. Not just a gold digger, but a professional con artist for whom marrying Noah was just part of a scheme to get rich. Some kind of twisted relief came with this knowledge. Now I was absolutely sure that I had done the right thing. I reached for the whiskey, but changed my mind. It was too early to celebrate. I had to wait for Beatrice's call. It was bound to come. She would try to manipulate, threaten, beg, and I would be ready. At 11:24, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I smiled. Here she was. Alfred Hampton, I answered calmly. Mr. Hampton? Beatrice's voice was trembling. Help! I've been detained at the airport. Some terrible misunderstanding. They say the money is stolen, that I'm facing deportation. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the moment. Really? What a surprise, Beatrice. And where were you going with my money? I was going to visit my sister in the Bahamas. It's just a short trip. Noah knew about it. Don't lie to me, Beatrice. My voice hardened. Noah found your note. Goodbye, you bum. That doesn't sound like a short trip to visit your sister. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Beatrice spoke in a different tone, cold, calculating. Was it you, old man? Did you set this up? Think you're so smart? Not smarter than you, Beatrice. Just more experienced. 35 years at customs taught me to recognize people like you. Was this a test? Her voice rang with fury. You wanted to catch me from the start, didn't you? You always hated me, always tried to turn Noah against me. I didn't hate you, Beatrice. I just saw you for who you really are. A woman who married my son for money, not love. And as we can see, I was right. You'll regret this, she hissed. I'll find a lawyer. I'll tell them how you set me up, how you turned Noah against me from the very beginning. I smirked. Go ahead and explain why you ran off with someone else's money and left your husband a note saying, "Goodbye, you bum." I'm sure the judge will be delighted. Beatrice changed tactics. Her voice became pleading again. Mr. Hampton, please, this is all a terrible misunderstanding. That note, it was a stupid joke. I would have come back. The money is safe. I would have returned everything. Of course you would have. After you were caught red-handed. They say I'm facing deportation. Her voice took on a hysterical tone. My whole life is here. I can't go back to Canada. Are you afraid of seeing your ex-fiancé, Edward Pratt? I threw out the information, enjoying the effect. Beatrice fell silent for a moment. You know, her voice dropped to a whisper, that you pulled the same trick 2 years ago in Toronto? Yes, I know, and so does the police. This isn't your first offense, Beatrice. You're a professional con artist. Help me, she cried. I'm going to be deported. I'll lose everything. You've already lost everything, Beatrice, I replied calmly. The moment you decided you could steal from my son and get away with it. Please, she began to sob. I'll pay it all back. Every cent. Just help me get out of here. I paused, enjoying her despair. It's too late, Beatrice. Much too late. And I hung up. I sat in my chair, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. Revenge had been served, but there was no joy, only thoughts of Noah, of how he was coping with the betrayal. The phone rang again, the same unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a message arrived. Help me get out of here. I'll pay you back, I swear. Don't let them deport me. Beatrice. I deleted the message without replying. Then another one came. You ruined Noah's life. He will never forgive you for that. These words struck a nerve. Had I really ruined my son's life? Or had I saved him from years of manipulation and lies? I walked over to the window. The rain had intensified, drumming on the roof. I wondered if the same rain was falling on Noah's house. How was he doing? How was he feeling? Was he sitting there staring at the note that said, "Goodbye, you bastard"? Or had he already started picking up the pieces of his life? I tried calling him again, but his phone was still off. It was worrying. What if grief and shock pushed him to do something rash? I knew he had a gun. For self-defense, he said, although in our quiet town, it was an unnecessary precaution. No, I told myself, Noah wasn't the type to give up. He was strong, like his mother. He would get through this. He just needed time. The phone rang again. This time it was Kyle. Alfred, she agreed to the deal. She's returning all the money and voluntarily leaving the country. In exchange, there will be no criminal prosecution. A wise decision, I replied. When will she be deported? In 3 days. She's in custody now and the paperwork is being prepared. I thanked Kyle and hung up. It was over. Beatrice would be deported. The money would be returned. Justice would prevail. So why wasn't I satisfied? I tried to imagine how Noah must be feeling right now. Shock, pain, betrayal. 3 years of living with a woman who never loved him. 3 years of lies. A blow like that could break anyone. I slept poorly that night, waking up at every little noise. I dreamed of Elizabeth, looking at me reproachfully. You should have found another way, Alfred, she said. You hurt our boy. In the morning, I tried calling Noah again. The phone was finally turned on, but he still didn't answer. I left a message. Son, call me when you can. I'm worried the day dragged on slowly. I tried to distract myself. I read, watched TV, even tackled the long-delayed repair of the porch. Nothing helped. My thoughts kept returning to Noah, to how he was coping. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore and drove to his house. There was no car in the driveway. Maybe he had gone to see friends or just decided to get some fresh air. I knocked on the door just in case, but as expected, no one answered. When I got home, I poured myself a whiskey and sat down in Elizabeth's chair. Questions without answers swirled around in my head. Had I done the right thing? Was my plan too cruel? What if Noah never forgave me for setting up his wife, even if she deserved it? The phone rang. I jumped and grabbed the receiver, hoping it was Noah. But it was another unknown number. Alfred Hampton, I answered, expecting to hear Beatrice's voice. Mr. Hampton, this is Robert Klein, Mrs. Hampton's attorney. The voice was professionally restrained. My client claims that you deliberately set her up by marking the money as stolen. I smiled. And has your client explained why she ran away with the money, leaving her husband a note saying, "Goodbye, you bastard"? Pause. It's a family misunderstanding that can be resolved without involving law enforcement. I'm afraid it's too late, Mr. Klein. Your client was arrested while attempting to illegally take a large sum of cash across the border. Furthermore, as I understand it, she has visa issues, Mr. Hampton. The lawyer's voice became harsher. If you do not withdraw the charges, we will be forced to file a counterclaim for defamation and intentional emotional distress. I laughed. Go ahead. I have a recording of our family conversation where I give the money to my son, not her. There's a note she left. There's a one-way ticket to the Bahamas. And by the way, information about her previous escapades in Canada. Good luck in court, Mr. Klein. I hung up the phone, feeling a rush of adrenaline. They can't do anything to me. All the evidence is against Beatrice. The night was restless again. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Thoughts of my son kept me awake. How was he coping? Would he be able to recover from this blow? Would he hate me for setting this trap? The next morning, I woke up to a phone call. The screen lit up with Noah. Finally. Noah? How are you, son? Dad. His voice sounded strange, as if he wasn't quite himself. You were right. All this time, you were right about her. Noah, She left a note, he interrupted. Goodbye, loser. Can you imagine? 3 years together and all she could say to me was, goodbye, loser. I heard him take a sip of something. Judging by his voice, he was drunk. Son, are you home? I'm coming over. No, don't, he replied quickly. I can handle this myself. I just wanted to say you were right. And thank you for exposing her. Noah, listen. I have to go, Dad. I'll call you later, and he hung up before I could finish. I sat there clutching the phone, my heart heavy. Noah thanked me for exposing Beatrice, but I could hear the pain and despair in his voice. I saved him from a life with a fraud, but the price was his broken heart. My revenge was complete. Beatrice was caught, her true nature revealed, the money returned. But looking at Elizabeth's photo, I couldn't shake the feeling that the price had been too high. A week had passed since Beatrice was detained at the airport. 7 days filled with heavy thoughts and growing anxiety. Noah hardly answered my calls, and when he did pick up, the conversations were short and tense. I stood on the porch of my house watching Noah's car pull up. Today he had finally agreed to come. We need to talk, he had said on the phone, and something in his voice made me tense. Noah got out of the car. He looked better than I had expected, shaven, in clean clothes. But his eyes remained dull, and there was a tension in his posture that hadn't been there before. Hi, Dad, he said, climbing the steps. Hello, son. Good to see you. We went into the living room. Noah sat down on the sofa, and I settled into the armchair opposite him. A heavy pause hung between us. How are you? I finally asked. Been better, he shrugged. I filed for divorce. The lawyer says, given the circumstances, it will go quickly. That's good, I nodded. What about the house? Are you going to sell it? I haven't decided yet. There are too many memories there. Noah paused. I talked to Kyle Rivers. I tensed up. Kyle. So Noah knew everything now. Oh, I see. Yes. Noah looked at me intently. He told me about your plan, how you marked the money, how you had Beatrice followed, how you set everything up. I took a deep breath. Noah, I had to make sure. Make sure of what? He interrupted. That my wife would betray me? Or did you just want to prove you were right all along? I wanted to protect you, I said firmly. Beatrice never loved you. She was only with you for the money. And how did you know that? Anger colored Noah's voice. What right did you have to decide for me? To set up this test? I saw right through her, son. The way she asked about our finances, the way she looked at the valuables in the house, the way she behaved with your mother in the hospice. And instead of talking to me, you decided to set a trap? Noah shook his head. You know what sucks the most? Part of me is grateful to you for exposing her. But another part hates you for how you did it. I was silent, not knowing what to say. He was right. I could have talked to him, tried to open his eyes in a different way. But I chose the path of manipulation and deception, the same path I accused Beatrice of taking. Kyle told me something else, Noah continued, that Beatrice had already done something similar in Canada, that she's a professional con artist. Is that true? I nodded. Yes. 2 years ago, she was engaged to an elderly businessman in Toronto. She disappeared before the wedding, taking valuables and money with her. Noah closed his eyes, digesting the information. So I wasn't even special to her. Just another target. I'm sorry, son. Sorry. He opened his eyes, anger flashing in them. You're sorry my life is ruined? Or that your plan worked too well? Noah, I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to protect you. Protect me? He smiled bitterly. You used me as bait. You let me believe you were giving us $600,000 knowing it was a trap. You watched me make plans for that money, dream about the future, and all the while you knew it was a deception. I shuddered at his words. He was right. In my eagerness to expose Beatrice, I hadn't thought about how my actions would affect Noah. You're right, I admitted quietly. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have used you. Noah shook his head. You know what's ironic? You always despised Beatrice for manipulating me, and you did the same thing. Those words hurt the most. I had manipulated my son, used his trust to catch Beatrice. How was I any better than her? Noah, Don't, Dad, he raised his hand, stopping me. I know you thought you were doing the right thing, that you wanted to protect me, but you crossed the line. We sat in heavy silence. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming on the roof, just like the day Beatrice ran away with the money. What will happen to her now? Noah finally asked. She's being deported to Canada. Tomorrow, he nodded as if it didn't matter. And the money? It's already been returned to your account. All 600,000. Kyle made sure of it. The money that started all this? Noah shook his head. You know, I really loved her. Despite everything, part of me still... He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. I understood. Even after the betrayal, even knowing that Beatrice had never loved him, Noah still had feelings for her. Love can't be turned off like a light. She called me yesterday, Noah said, from the temporary detention center. I tensed. What did she say? She told me about your plan, how you set it all up. She apologized, said she really loved me, but the temptation was too great. He smiled bitterly. She's still lying, even now. Do you believe her? No, Noah shook his head. But you know what's the worst part? I don't believe you either. I don't believe you anymore. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. I knew Noah was upset, but I didn't expect it to be this serious. Son, no, Dad. You betrayed my trust. You used me in your game. You're no better than Beatrice. I never wanted to steal your money, I protested. I never lied about my feelings for you. But you lied to me. Noah looked me straight in the eye. All this time, while you were planning your trap, you lied to me. Wasn't that true? I couldn't deny it. I had lied, hidden my intentions, manipulated him. Yes, I admitted quietly. I lied. And I regret it. Noah stood up. I have to go. I came to tell you that I'm leaving Clairton. I got a job offer in Seattle. I start in 2 weeks. Seattle? I stood up too. But that's on the other side of the country. Exactly, he looked at me expressionlessly. I need to start over, away from all this, away from the memories, away from you. The last word sounded like a sentence. Noah, please don't do this. We can fix everything. I understand that I was wrong. No, Dad, he shook his head. You don't understand. And you never have. All your life you've tried to control me, to tell me how to live. Even Mom saw it. but she always defended you, saying you were just caring. And then she died, and there were no more restraints. I stood there stunned. Was that really how he saw our life? As an endless struggle for control? I never wanted to control you, son, only to protect you. But it's the same thing to you, isn't it? Noah smiled bitterly. Protection through control. Through manipulation, through mistrust. I didn't know how to respond because there was some truth in his words. I had always tried to protect my son from mistakes, make decisions for him, show him the right path. Even in the story with Beatrice, instead of just talking to him, I decided to take matters into my own hands, arrange a check, prove that I was right. Goodbye, Dad. Noah headed for the door. I'll contact you when I'm ready. If I'm ready. Noah, wait, I rushed after him. Don't leave like this. Let's talk. I'll explain everything. There's nothing to explain. He turned around at the door. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. And he left, leaving me standing in the doorway, listening to the sound of the car driving away. I returned to the living room and collapsed into an armchair. What had I done? In my desire to protect my son from Beatrice, I had lost him. I had destroyed our relationship, perhaps irrevocably. Looking up, I met the gaze of Elizabeth's photograph on the mantelpiece. She seemed to be looking at me reproachfully. I warned you, Alfred, she seemed to say. Your control will push him away one day. Kyle called that evening. How did it go with Noah? He asked cautiously. Terribly, I sighed. He's moving to Seattle. He says he can't trust me anymore. Kyle was silent for a moment. I'm sorry I told him everything. He asked, and I couldn't lie. You did the right thing, I assured my friend. He had a right to know. He'll cool off, Alfred. Give him time. I'm not so sure. This time I really crossed the line. After talking to Kyle, I sat by the window for a long time, watching the darkening sky. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung low, promising another downpour. Just as a cloud hung over my soul, promising a storm of regret and remorse. I thought about my life, about the decisions I had made, about how, after Elizabeth's death, my suspicion had only grown, how I saw danger in everything and everyone, especially Beatrice, how my desire to control those around me, especially my son, had led to disaster. Yes, Beatrice turned out to be exactly what I thought she was, a fraud who used Noah. But my methods, my deception, my manipulation, how am I any better than her? I used my own son as bait, played with his feelings, let him make plans for money that I knew he would lose. The phone rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. Unknown number. Alfred Hampton, I answered. Mr. Hampton. Beatrice's voice sounded calm, without the previous hysteria or anger. I wanted to talk to you before the deportation. I have nothing to say to you, Beatrice, but I do. I know how you feel right now. You think you've won, but in fact you've lost. What are you talking about? Noah, of course. He told me about your conversation, about leaving, about no longer trusting you. I clenched my teeth. That's none of your business. Maybe, she paused. You know, I really did fall in love with him. Over time, not right away, of course. At first it was a calculation. You're right. But Noah, he's special, kind, caring. With him, I started to change. Don't lie to me, Beatrice. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. You never loved him. You were waiting for the moment to steal the money and run away. Think what you want, her voice grew colder. But know this, you didn't protect your son. You ruined his life just like I did, maybe even more. I only betrayed his trust. You robbed him of his faith in love, in family, in people, in you. Goodbye, Beatrice. I didn't want to hear any more. Goodbye, Mr. Hampton. Enjoy your victory and your loneliness. I hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Beatrice's words, as much as I wanted to deny them, hit a nerve. She was right. I didn't protect Noah. I ruined his life. In my desire to protect him from pain, I caused him even more pain. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy head. During the night, I dreamed of Elizabeth. She stood in our bedroom, looking at me sadly. You always saw the worst in people, Alfred, she said. And in the end, you became the very thing you feared. I tried to contact Noah, but he didn't answer my calls. I sent him a message. I understand how you feel, son. And I'm sorry, I really am. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. There was no reply. Kyle called in the afternoon. Beatrice has been deported, he said. The plane to Toronto left an hour ago. Thanks, Kyle, I replied mechanically. Are you okay? His voice sounded strange. No, I'm not okay. I lost my son, Kyle. Give him time, old man. He'll understand that you wanted what was best for him. Even if he understands, will he forgive me? Kyle was silent for a moment. I don't know. But there is always hope. After the conversation, I went out into the garden. Elizabeth's roses were blooming, filling the air with their sweet scent. She always said that flowers are like people. They need care, patience, and space to grow. You can't make a rose bloom faster, Alfred, she said. Just like you can't make a person love according to your rules. I never really understood those words. Until today. In the evening, sitting in Elizabeth's chair with a glass of whiskey, I reflected on my life. On 35 years at Customs, where my suspicion and attention to detail were virtues. On how those same qualities destroyed my relationship with my son. I had always been proud of my ability to see through people, to recognize lies and manipulation. But what good was that ability if it had caused the most important person in my life to turn away from me? My revenge was complete. Beatrice was exposed and deported. The money has been returned. Justice has prevailed. But the price was exorbitantly high, the love and trust of my own son. Ultimately, my suspicion and desire to control led to a disaster that I myself had orchestrated. I was so afraid that Noah would be deceived that I deceived him myself. I was so eager to protect him from pain that I caused him even greater pain. You've always been like this, Alfred. I could almost hear Elizabeth's voice, always trying to protect everyone by controlling everything. But some things cannot be controlled. Some lessons people have to learn for themselves. I closed my eyes, feeling a tear roll down my cheek. For the first time in a long time, I cried, not out of grief or joy, but out of realization, out of the understanding that in my desire to be a good father, I had become the very person I had always despised, a manipulator, a liar, a destroyer of trust. A week later, Noah left for Seattle. He didn't say goodbye, he just sent a short message. I'm leaving today. I'm selling the house. The money from the sale will go to charity. I don't want anything to do with her, or with you. I was left alone in a big house that was once filled with laughter and love. Now there is only silence and ghosts of the past, and the realization that my suspicion, my desire to control, my desire to always be right, led to the biggest defeat of my life. 6 months, 183 days since Noah left for Seattle. I marked each day on the calendar, hanging in the kitchen, as if serving time in the prison of my own pride. Winter in Clarton was harsh. Snow lay thick, turning the streets into white tunnels. I rarely left the house, only when necessary, to get groceries or when Geraldine Potts insisted that I join her for a bridge night for retirees. Alfred, you can't shut yourself away like this, she would say, bringing another blueberry pie. Life goes on. Does it? Sometimes it seemed to me that mine had stopped the day Noah announced he was leaving, that he no longer trusted me. Today was Tuesday, mid-March. The snow had begun to melt, revealing wet patches on the lawns. I sat in Elizabeth's chair, as I did every evening, with a cup of tea and an old photo album on my lap. I leafed through the pages depicting our former life, the happy family I had destroyed with my own hands. Here was Noah at 5 years old on the beach, building a sandcastle. Here was his first day of school, proud with a new backpack, graduation, college, his first job. In all the photos, he was smiling, trusting, and open. When did that openness disappear? When did I start to destroy it with my mistrust and control? The phone on the table rang, interrupting my thoughts. I glanced at the screen without much hope. Noah hadn't called since he left. It was Kyle. Hey, old man. His voice sounded cheerful. How are you? Same as usual, I replied. How about you? Fine. Finally retired. Now I fish every day. Listen, I'm not calling for no reason. I have news. I tensed up. What kind of news? About Beatrice. She's in jail. I sat up straight in my chair. What happened? She fell for the same trick in Vancouver. She met an elderly widower, gained his trust, and tried to rob him. But this time, she was arrested before she could escape. She got 5 years. I closed my eyes. Beatrice hadn't changed. She hadn't learned her lesson. She continued to deceive and use people. Thanks for letting me know, Kyle. I thought you'd be pleased to know that justice prevailed after all. But I felt no satisfaction or joy, only fatigue and emptiness. Have you spoken to Noah? Kyle asked after a pause. No, I sighed. He doesn't answer his phone or write. I sent him a few letters, but I'm not sure he read them. Give him time, Alfred. He'll understand. It's been 6 months, Kyle. If he hasn't understood by now, I don't think he ever will. After our conversation, I sat motionless for a long time, looking at the photos. The news about Beatrice should have brought me satisfaction. After all, I was 100% right. She really was a professional con artist who used men for money. My intuition and experience had not failed me. But at what cost did this vindication come? At the cost of my relationship with my only son. At the cost of trust that may never be restored. I got up and walked to the window. Twilight enveloped Clarton, turning houses and trees into blurred silhouettes. Somewhere out there, thousands of miles away, Noah was living his life. Without me. Had he built a new home? Had he found friends? Had he managed to recover from Beatrice's betrayal and my deception? I tried to contact him many times. I called, wrote letters, even sent a Christmas card. No response. It was as if I no longer existed for him. Once, in a moment of desperation, I even considered going to Seattle, showing up at his doorstep. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the fear of seeing the same coldness in his eyes that he had shown during our last conversation. Or the realization that you can't impose yourself on someone if they don't want to see you. Instead, I wrote a long letter. I apologized, explained my motives, asked for forgiveness. I sent it to the address of the company where he worked, which I found on the internet. I don't know if it arrived, if Noah read it. Most likely he threw it away without opening it. I went to the bar and poured myself a whiskey. I didn't used to like strong drinks, but over the past few months I've grown accustomed to the bitter taste and the way alcohol dulls the pain and loneliness. How strange life is. I spent 35 years working at customs, where suspicion and distrust were necessary qualities. Every day I encountered people trying to cheat, smuggle, and break the law. This work shaped me, my view of the world and my view of people. Then I retired and transferred those same principles to my everyday life, to my relationship with my son and his wife. I looked for a catch where there might simply be human interest. I saw greed where there might have been sincerity. I was right about Beatrice. She really was a fraud. But the methods I chose to expose her turned out to be just as manipulative and dishonest as her own. I fought evil with its own weapons and ended up becoming the very thing I was fighting against. The doorbell snapped me out of my thoughts. Geraldine, I thought, had brought another pie and would try to persuade me to go to some evening event for retirees. She never gave up trying to pull me out of my self-imposed confinement, but standing on the doorstep was the mailman, a young man in a uniform jacket. Mr. Hampton, express delivery. Please sign here. I took the envelope, puzzled. Who could have sent me something so urgent? Inside was a letter on official letterhead from a Seattle law firm and a folded document. Dear Mr. Hampton, we hereby notify you that your son, Noah Hampton, has filed a petition to legally change his surname to Douglas, his mother's maiden name. Under Washington state law, you, as his closest relative, have the right to express your opinion on this matter within 30 days of receiving this notice. I sank into a chair, feeling the ground slip away from under my feet. Noah was changing his last name. He was cutting off his last connection to me. He was erasing all memory of our relationship. That evening, I got drunk for the first time in many years. I sat in Elizabeth's chair, drank whiskey straight from the bottle, and talked to her photograph. You were right, Liz, I said, looking into her smiling eyes in the picture. I was always too harsh, too suspicious. I thought I was protecting you, but in reality, I was destroying what I was trying to preserve. I woke up at dawn with a headache and a heavy heart. My first thought was to call Noah and try to talk him out of changing his last name, but I knew it was pointless. If he had come to this decision, then his choice was final. Instead, I sat down at my desk and wrote a short reply to the lawyer. I have no objection to my son's decision to change his last name. Sincerely, Alfred Hampton. After that incident, something changed in me. It was as if the last thread of hope had been severed, and I finally accepted the inevitable. Noah would never return to my life. There would be no Christmas phone calls, no dinners together, no conversations about the future. I had lost my son as completely as I had once lost Elizabeth. Only she had been taken by illness, and he by my own actions. With this realization came a strange relief. I no longer had to wait by the phone, check the mail, hope for a reconciliation that would never come. I could finally start living with what I had, loneliness and memories. In April, when Elizabeth's roses bloomed, I went out into the garden for the first time in a long time. Not just out of necessity, but to work with the plants. I pruned dry branches, loosened the soil, and removed weeds. Physical labor helped me not to think, to focus on simple actions. Geraldine was delighted to see me working. "That's right, Alfred. You have to move forward. Rather, I was simply learning to exist in a new reality where my actions had led to irreparable consequences. In May, I finally decided to go into Noah's room, which I hadn't opened since he left for college many years ago. Everything remained as it was in his teenage years. Rock band posters on the walls, sports trophies on the shelves, an old computer on the desk. I sat down on the bed, ran my hand over the blanket, remembering how I used to read him books before bed, how we discussed his school problems, how we made plans for the future. Where and when did it all go wrong? When did my love and care turn into control and mistrust? Maybe it started even before Beatrice came along. Maybe she was just the last straw that exposed a problem that had always been there. I remembered how I disapproved of Noah's choice of college, insisting that he should go to a more prestigious one. How I criticized his first job, thinking he deserved better. How I doubted every girlfriend he had before Beatrice, finding faults and pointing them out. I always thought I was protecting him, shielding him from mistakes that I could see through thanks to my experience. But in reality, I was simply not allowing him to live his own life, learn from his own mistakes, and gain his own experience. And then Beatrice came along, and my control intensified. I saw her as a threat not only to my son's financial well-being, but also to my influence over him. She was distancing him from me, and I hated her for it, not even realizing that I myself was pushing Noah away with my distrust and criticism. When I set that trap with the money, it was not only a test for Beatrice, but also a way to prove myself right, to regain the control that was slipping away from me. I thought I was protecting my son, but in reality, I was fighting for power over his life, and I lost. Final and irrevocable. In June, exactly 6 months after Noah left, I received another letter from Seattle. This time it was from him. Short, businesslike, without a salutation or signature. "The name change procedure is complete. Please do not attempt to contact me in the future." This is my final decision. I folded the letter and put it in the desk drawer where I kept all the other letters I had written to Noah, which he apparently never even read. A box of memories and unfulfilled hopes. That evening, I sat in Elizabeth's chair again, but this time without whiskey. I just looked out the window at the sunset, painting the Clarton sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about the price of my revenge, and about how the justice I had sought so hard had turned out to be a Pyrrhic victory. Yes, Beatrice had been exposed and punished. Yes, I had been right about her from the start. But at what cost did this vindication come? I lost my son, not just for a while, forever. He changed his last name, disowned me, cut me out of his life, and I couldn't blame him. I pushed him to do it with my actions, my distrust, my desire to control everything and everyone. Well, I got what I deserved. I punished myself much more severely than anyone else could have punished me. I condemned myself to loneliness, which has now become my constant companion. I heard a sound from the hallway. Something had fallen. I got up and went to check. A framed photograph lay on the floor, having slipped off the dresser. It was a family photo. Me, Elizabeth, and little Noah, about 5 years old. We were all smiling, happy, unaware of what lay ahead. I picked up the photo and noticed that the glass was cracked, dividing the image into two parts. Symbolic, I thought. Our family had also cracked, split apart, fallen apart. Returning to my chair, I looked at the sunset again. The sun had almost disappeared behind the horizon, leaving behind only a fading light and approaching darkness. I thought about how, in my desire to protect my son from people who couldn't be trusted, I myself had become one of those people. I used him, manipulated him, lied to him, all in the name of protection and care, all with the best of intentions. But as Elizabeth said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I wanted to protect Noah from pain, but I caused him even more pain. I wanted to protect him from betrayal, but I betrayed his trust myself. And now I was paying for it with loneliness in a big empty house, with photographs as the only reminder that I once had a family. There was love. There was trust. Perhaps this is justice, I thought, watching the last rays of the sun disappear over the horizon. Real justice, not the kind I tried to establish with my own hands. The highest justice in which everyone gets what they deserve. I wanted to punish Beatrice for her lies and manipulation. But in the end, I punished myself. For my toxicity, for my distrust, for my need to control everything and everyone. And this punishment turned out to be worse than anything I could have imagined. Because there is nothing worse than knowing that you yourself have destroyed your life and the lives of those you loved. That no reconciliation is possible. That some bridges are burned forever. Darkness enveloped the room, but I didn't turn on the light. I sat in Elizabeth's chair, in silence and solitude, thinking about the price of my revenge and how some lessons we learned too late.